Zachary ever taken a lesson on a musical instrument? I've taken guitar lessons. I think she noticed that, although I was mostly self-taught. And then I played drums in high school, so I took lessons for that. And then in elementary school, I took lessons on the cello and the piano. So I'm one of those who wish they hadn't given up piano so soon. Eating dinner in bed, and now that I'm married, would never eat dinner in bed because I'm sure it'd be far too messy. And it is messy because I used to do it all the time, and there was stuff in my bed constantly. His favorite nickname that people called him. Probably my favorite growing up was Slap, which is my last name backwards. My friends used to call me that, still do. Although more recently, Christine sometimes calls me Special Guy, which I find funny and endearing. Would he rather play a board game, go dancing, explore a city he's never been to, or bike ride the country? Probably go dancing. Although, a lot of nights I'd rather just stay in and play a board game, but on the whole, go dancing. If you win a huge lottery prize, what is the first thing he would do? I don't think the answer is actually on here. I would pay off our mortgages and put the rest into my investment account on Robinhood. I guess for these answers, I would start looking for a new house, and I would find a financial advisor or probably an estate planner to get a trust set up. I know enough about investing that I would probably create my own portfolio, and then the goal would be to live off of only the dividends and just let the underlying wealth accumulate. But the first thing I would do is pay off our mortgages for sure. And then start looking for a new house so we could have a house and two condos. What is his favorite family recipe? The classic has to be my grandma's chicken and dumplings. Although my grandma never liked making dumplings, so they were really just gigantic homemade noodles. But that was always my favorite growing up. Although my sister's pound cake is probably a close second. And then growing up, we had our rotation of meals. My mom would cook every night, but it would be like the same 10 meals we'd just like cycle through. And I always loved Ritz cracker chicken, was probably my favorite. It was chicken breaded in Ritz crackers. What junk food can he not stay away from? Pizza, obviously. That's an easy one. Most days, would he rather go to a party, hang out with Christine and a couple friends, or hang out with Christine alone? I would most of the time just like to stay home with Christine alone. Although I do love when we get to have a couple of friends over to play games or hang out. Just please don't even invite me to the party. I don't want to go. Which category or categories would he use to describe himself in high school? Given that I'm a 4, definitely felt like an outsider. But I went to a really tiny high school, so we kind of did everything. Like I was in sports, I was in music, I was in theater, and I was like okay at all of them. Nothing spectacular. So I would consider myself a middle of the roader would be my top choice there. But you could say artsy kid a little bit. I did like speech and theater. I was nerdy in the sense that I did really well in school and liked doing really well in school, although it didn't take a lot of effort for me to do that. Yeah, I felt like an outsider, and I did play sports. I hung out with other guys who played sports. Again, I went to a small high school, so our best shooting guard was also the trumpet section leader in band and sat next to me in choir. So there wasn't really jocks in that traditional sense. We just all did everything. So I would consider myself a middle of the roader. Someone cuts in front of you in line. Depends on how they do it. If they're really obvious and obnoxious about it and like entitled about it, then like something needs to be said. I wouldn't say that I would tell them to get back to where they belong, but I would probably ask them about it to make them feel called out. Like, what are you doing? But if it was like innocent, or like we kind of almost got there at the same time, then it's one spot. I don't really care. I'd probably just pretend not to notice. A friend borrows $20 and forgets to pay it back. Forget about it myself is probably the closest. I don't really keep tabs on friends. If I give somebody something, I don't expect it back. I'm not going to let that affect the relationship. That probably makes it unlikely for me to ever give an amount that I would need back. But to me, like, once it's given, it's given. If I get it back, cool. If not, like, whatever. I don't expect it back. Of the people from his past he is in touch with, other than his family, which one has he known the longest? This one is a little hard. I guess it depends on what you mean by keep in touch. Because my buddy Adam, who is coming to our wedding, he was like my best buddy growing up, probably the only and pretty say like really close friend. Like we ran together in cross country and track, and then we would go for runs and then just sit, hang out, talk for hours. So like we were really close. But I don't talk to him that much anymore. I talk to other people from high school way more, but I wasn't as close to them. But I guess Adam's about as long as any of them. He came to Orange City in the 3rd grade, so however long ago that was. But some of my other high school friends I've known since kindergarten. So most of my life. What does he do with appliance manuals and warranties? Manuals will throw away. Don't need them. Most of it you can figure out yourself, or manuals are available online. Just Google it. Warranties, I will tape to the device in some inconspicuous place just so I have it available. Which of the following of these makes him very uncomfortable? Deep water always freak me out. Doesn't really come up much, so doesn't bother me. And I'll go on a boat in the ocean. I even went scuba diving at the Great Barrier Reef, which is like out there. It's like a 45-minute boat ride from the coast, but didn't freak me out. I don't know. The idea of living on an island in the middle of the ocean kind of freaks me out if I was stuck there. And then the thought of growing old, if I really contemplated it, would probably bother me, but I don't ever really think about it. I think about preparing myself to be healthy when I'm old, so hopefully it doesn't go so bad. Which of his eyes has better vision? I doubt she knows this. I'm slightly farsighted in my left eye, so my right eye is a little bit better, but they're both pretty good. Zachary is invited to a dinner party and is offered the chance to choose his table partner. Nothing but the occupation of each guest. Which would I pick to sit by? This is a tough one. I think librarian, because they've probably read a lot. They probably have some interesting books they could talk about, interesting ideas they've read in books. And I don't know, I'd like to imagine that a librarian would be nerdy and approachable and not intimidating. So probably an easy dinner party guest. But I'm also looking at newspaper reporter, could be really interesting. They probably know a lot of interesting stuff too and have some cool stories. And a rabbi would be really interesting to sit and talk about perspectives on Jewish and Christian texts. But also, I don't know if I want to do that at a dinner party. So I'll pick librarian, with newspaper reporter being second probably. Which type of vehicles has he driven even just once? I've driven all but bus. I've driven a convertible, a motorcycle, a pickup, and, well, I've driven like a 17-foot U-Haul, if that counts as a large truck. But I don't think I've ever driven a bus. How did my parents meet? My parents met at church in Iowa City when my dad was in law school and my mom was doing her dietetic internship before she went to med school. So they met at church. When was the last time he was in the hospital? I just brought Christine to get an endoscopy Tuesday, I think. So a couple days ago. At the beach, does he prefer... I prefer lying under an umbrella, I would say. Walking on the sand is annoying. Walking on rocks can be fun. Lying in the sun is too hot. I'll say lying under an umbrella. Or not going to the beach would also be an acceptable answer. As a child, did he ever go to summer camp? What was the name of the camp? I did tell Christine about some summer camps I went to. Doubt she remembers the names. I went to a Christian summer camp a few years called Big Sandy up in northern Minnesota. That was really fun. And then I also went a few years to a Boy Scout camp that I cannot remember the name of, but that was less fun. It was a lot of working on merit badges and building fires with flint and steel and crap. But Big Sandy was where it was at. It was a lot of fun. What does he think is the funniest TV show ever? I think my favorite is probably Ted Lasso. I think it's super funny, super touching, and I resonate with it a lot, being a white dude from the Midwest, because all of his white Midwestern coach references are very real to me. I think it's really well done, although the first two seasons of Community are amazing as well. Those might be funnier, but I think Ted Lasso is better overall. As Zachary Eber, I've ridden a camel and I've ridden mules, which isn't technically a horse. I was a pallbearer for my buddy Max when he passed. Twirled a pizza in the air. I'm sure I've tried. We used to make homemade pizza every Friday night. My mom would make dough and we had marinara from the garden and we would each make our own pizza. And I'm sure I tried to toss the dough in the air a few times, but whether it qualifies as twirled a pizza in the air is questionable. Has he ever appeared in a newspaper article? First thing that comes to mind is when I had my head injury. It was a pretty big deal, and I came from a small town, so I'm sure they did an article on that. And they would always post about high schoolers who made it to state speech or whatever. So I'm sure I showed up in the local paper a couple of times, but yeah, definitely for the injury, but I don't really remember what the last one was for. What household chore does Zachary actually enjoy? I wouldn't say I enjoy any of them, but I do find it satisfying to vacuum and sweep. You get a visual and physical reward for it. You can see it get cleaner. It feels better. I love a freshly vacuumed carpet, but I don't think I enjoy any chores. When asked as a child what he wanted to do when he grew up, he answered, I never knew. I think the closest I ever got to wanting to be anything is in my late 20s. I was considering going back to school to be a therapist, but I just couldn't justify the cost, especially given that I was making decent money already. And a friend of mine's dad pointed out one time, he's talking to me and another buddy of mine. We were both smart and capable. He compared us to his son, who was a musician, and he's like, yeah, my son's gonna be a musician or a pastor. That's what he's got. That's what he's good at. That's what he wants to do. But you guys, it must be hard because you're smart and you could be good at whatever you did. And that really resonated with me. I was like, yeah, I could do whatever, just figure out what I wanted to do. But I never knew. Is he better at remembering faces, names, both, or neither? I mean, definitely faces, but I'm not sure I'm all that great at that either, because there's been plenty of times where I'd seen people I'm apparently supposed to know and have no recollection. If Zachary could take a magical pill that made him a pro in any Olympic sport, what sport would he choose? I'm going to say gymnastics, because those guys are super coordinated and super jacked, but I was also considering track and field because I always loved running, but was never good enough to really compete. And I would consider basketball because that would be cool, but also basketball doesn't qualify as an Olympic sport to me. It's just like, I don't know. I don't watch basketball at the Olympics. I watch basketball in the NBA playoffs. So I'll say gymnastics for that. If Zachary could have any superpower, what would it be? Teleportation, I think. Just be anywhere I want as soon as I wanted to be there. That would be pretty dope. What is Zachary's blood type? Drum roll, please. I don't know. It's not O. I remember that, but I don't remember what it is. When he is home alone, does he usually turn on the TV? I always have something planned, some mindless, formulaic frying show where you don't really have to pay attention. You just know if they're accusing somebody and it's only 2/3 done, then that person didn't do it. And you can just go back to work and look back in a few minutes. Anything I don't really have to pay attention to. I have the TV on all the time. Hopefully you've enjoyed this session of Questions with Zachary.